Hi everybody, Adrian Plus here.
Yes,
again.
and Bridget, hello.
And it is, we think, number 76 in
I'm sure if it isn't, you'll let us know.
Sounding the Shallows.
We're sorry we're a little bit late this week. In fact, I think you've got a new title, Adrian.
Yes, I was king of the cancelling last time. And now, what would you call me now?
I would call you Adrian the Postponer.
Adrian the Postponer.
How about that?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's not been a great week for you, has it? Because you've been really quite under the weather. And it wasn't helped. Tell them what happened this afternoon.
Do you mean going to the
Yeah,
doctor in a blizzard?
it was a blizzard.
Yeah, it seems a bit odd that feeling ill, you go in a wheelchair in the thick snow to see,
No, it wasn't
get
thick
tests
snow.
done.
But
Well,
it was wild.
thickish,
It was
yeah.
very wild.
No, I don't. I mean, I've had a really bad cold for a week, and Bridget before that, so we haven't been very well. Actually, we've been a bit under the weather, haven't we? Not just this afternoon. We have been under the
a
weather.
bit snowed under.
Yeah.
See where I'm going with that?
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah,
No, seriously.
so much better than all the stuff we've done in the past.
Actually, seriously though, I think we are feeling just a little bit snowed under by the news that's... it's like a storm again, isn't it? To hear there's another mutation of the virus, I think it's just so frightening for Africa and for the rest of the world. And the other terrible news of this week, of course, was, we've known about the migrant crisis, as we like to call it, but to have 27 people die in a silly little boat in the Channel in November.
We don't
is
even
the pits.
begin to understand, do we, what that
No.
really means. Some of the problems are just far too big to absorb, aren't they? It's easy to go with headline things that are just a few sound bites, and you just
Yeah, I think it's easy, sort
try
of easy to
swallow
eat,
them.
really. Things that are
yeah.
just, you don't have to think about them too much. And there is a massive danger, isn't there? Because it's, these things just roll over you and you stop asking questions and you stop delving into it. You've often felt that about some Christian teaching, haven't you?
Well, I have. I have for years thought that it's all too easy to want stuff that doesn't take much digesting
Yeah.
in terms of ideas and
Yeah.
questions that don't get answered.
Yeah.
And as it's the most important thing in my life, I have to say any progress I've ever made has been by asking the questions that lots of other people don't want to ask.
I remember one of your books was Blind Spots in the Bible, wasn't
That's
it?
right,
Because
yeah.
one of the things that you've always felt is that we kind of sweep over the Bible and kind of allow things that actually are very indigestible. Just we don't think about them. We don't want to think about them. Like I say, they're easy to digest, really.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I really enjoyed writing that book, Blind Spots in the Bible, because as I went through the Bible again, every now and then I came to something where I thought, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that could possibly mean. And when you stop to actually look at it and examine it, it doesn't actually get any easier, but you are helped a bit by the fact that you've stopped and you've thought, I don't know. So I think there's great
I was really interested,
profit
Adrian.
in
The
that.
other day you said you wanted reality, like real wood. And I thought about that quite a lot, not veneered, not MDF, but the real stuff. And I don't know if you picked up this week, but there's been a bit of a row with Prince William and the BBC over stuff that's just allowed to go out on the media without really it being checked. And he's beginning to get very, very upset. And I thought what he said was interesting. I mean, he said a free, responsible and open press is of vital importance to a healthy democracy, but too often overblown and unfounded claims from unnamed sources are presented as facts.
Yeah.
One of the things I found, by contrast, quite funny was it seems to be majorly important, Adrian, whether the Queen managed, to get to the christening of her great-grandchildren. I mean, she's not been well, as we know.
Yeah.
But because nobody had a real picture of her, they just kept putting her in different colours.
Churned out photos of her.
Yes, in different
looking wonderful in her different coloured dresses and hats.
Yes. I think I thought, it was a bit like a sort of TV programme where people are doing multi-changes of costumes. The idea of the Queen setting out in a green hat and then changing in the taxi to a blue one and ending up with a yellow one, just to keep people amused.
Having said that, I must congratulate the Queen on looking so good
she does,
at her age and despite everything.
Yeah.
But I think the whole thing about reality and faith is, I think the older you get, that if you can hear some scratching noises, that's our dog. Who likes to get under the sofa and scratch away. It's really
but we're
annoying.
Keep going,
we're not going to stop just for that. No, it's really annoying that is annoying. But the whole business of trying to find ways to teach people or to tell people what is real in something like the Christian faith, and it's very easy when you're in a Christian setting, I imagine with other faiths too, because you have a certain freedom to say things you can't say outside, where other people say, "What are you saying?" So I'm really interested and bothered at the moment by how we talk about what is real. And I mean, supposing someone said you're always going on about Christianity and Jesus and all that, what has happened in your life that is so real?
Yes.
And
it's real, like
so,
real wood.
Yeah, like real wood.
Yeah.
That you could take it out and say, look, this is how
a lot of it I'm not sure about, but that's real. Because this last week was the big Children in Need thing in the UK, wasn't it? And I was really struck by the contrast between everything that went on, really. It's so big, isn't it? It's almost like one word, children in need.
Those two words,
Well,
three
two words, I know, but it
need,
becomes a word.
No, that's
it's
right,
a thing.
Yeah.
And we know it means being very silly and all the rest of it. And you were really struck, weren't you, by the contrast between all that and the little documentaries?
Yeah, the little documentaries, and because we've been around the world looking at the things that are happening and the need that is there. And when you actually look at those, or you are there and you're in the middle of them, suddenly you realise you're talking about real, gritty, sometimes horrendous and quite harrowing need among children, not just children, but we mostly work with children.
Well, I was going to say the charities we've been involved with are with children, aren't they? And those documentaries were, it boiled all down, didn't it? Somebody's, the drumathon, the dance-a-thon, all the big stuff boils down to a child, a vulnerable child needing support. Yeah. And that's what we felt, wasn't it, when we saw sponsorship and some of the stuff done by an organisation like Toy Box with street children, that each child made in the image of God, each child matters. And I mentioned, Adrian, about the thing about all these people who drowned. Something that's really impressed me is that our church, Church of England, the bishops, I don't mean particularly our church, but our national church has come out pretty strongly about this. Did you hear I'm trying to remember her name, Rose Hudson Wilkin. She's the Bishop of Dover. And she was on TV today and she was saying how desperately angry she is about the response to these 27 migrants who died. Yeah. Because she said, I'm feeling a deep inner rage that the world continues to allow this to happen, couched with political rhetoric as to whose fault it is. It's all our fault. We must take responsibility. And, she says we contribute to this. She says we bump up the rhetoric which then goes towards the politicians, and they accentuate it because they think that's what people want. I think people want to say, oh, this terrible crisis. They don't want us to see that these are individual people, individual desperate people.
Yeah, it's very easy to lose sight of the reality of the individual, isn't it? And we were talking earlier about, I used to work in a secure unit in the Midlands, and as you know, quite often we would have children there from...
Well, you've always had children there.
But I mean, children of secondary school age.
Some of them had done really terrible things.
Oh, awful things. And there came a day when we were told that a boy was coming in, and he was right at the lowest end of the age range, which would be 12 to 18, something like that. And he had killed somebody. And before,
killed an old lady, I seem to remember.
That's right. Yeah, before he arrived, we got into a mindset which said, right, we've got to be ready for this small monster who's going to come through the door with this thing around his neck. If he had a metal thing around his neck with a sign, it would say, I killed an elderly lady. Yeah.
And he did arrive with 2 bodyguards, didn't he? Two escorts, not bodyguards, escorts.
Escorts. And when he reached us, we heard the bottom door going. Yeah. And that's whoever was on that day arranged to unlock and lock the doors to let him in and them in, and then up the stairs, and then open the door at the top of the stairs. So there was a succession of loud key sounds, lock sounds, as the killer of the elderly lady was admitted. And then the door into the actual unit opened, and there was only 7 beds there. The rest of the boys who were resident there went back to their rooms, and the door was opened, and we waited for this person to come in, this murderer. And in came a very small boy with a very frightened face and a look of absolute lostness on his face. So there was him, suddenly not what we had thought about or were picturing, and at the same time there was this sad elderly person who had lost her life because of him and people he was with. Yeah,
and he needed long-term working with, and he was in the right place. I mean, it isn't that there isn't a migrant crisis. It's a huge problem, isn't it? And obviously it's going to be politicians largely that sort it. But I was very proud to be able to side mentally with the bishops who have come out so strongly to say each person matters. They're not just a block of a problem, really, and to look at it in that way. And I mean, you remember that thing that William said about the overblown, unfounded claim from unnamed sources? Well, that brought me back to the church again, thinking how easily we are impressed within Christianity by people who say it big and say it loud and say it confidently as a big thing. And actually the Jesus that we know, it was always small, wasn't it? It was always individuals.
Always rather unpredictable, and always geared to the person in front of him, or person who needed help or discipline or whatever it was at that particular time.
Do you remember we went to that conference, which was known by all the people who were just the people who went to it and not the speakers, as the Big Hair, Big Chair conference
in America, you mean,
in Texas, in the Gaylord Resort. Do you remember? And it was like that. They were people who had been listened to maybe a bit too much, and they were a bit too important, and they were losing touch with reality. They could say whatever they wanted, and to some extent get away with it. I'm not saying they were all wrong, But there was a strange atmosphere around it,
Well,
wasn't there?
the church is a very small world sometimes. And
Yeah.
I mean, the one we were in there, we didn't know what we were getting to. It was supposed to be about Christian books. But people were rolling up with an entourage of heavily suited people.
Yes.
And one person in front who was the main one who people had all heard of. And it was very difficult to know quite what was going on there. It was all about power and
It was all about power.
size
And
whatever.
actually it was about big hair on the whole, wasn't
That's
it?
right.
People seem to have huge hairstyles.
Wasn't it known as the big hair, big chair?
That's what I just said.
Big chair, something
Yeah,
like that,
because they
yeah.
sat on these big things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've just been rereading a book, Adrian, that I loved a long time ago, by Anne Lamott. And I mean, you like Anne Lamott. I like Anne
Oh, I
Lamott.
love Anne Lamott.
She's a
yeah.
dreadlocked
I
American.
haven't met her, mind you, but
No.
I love how she writes, and I love her take on things.
Yeah. And I was thinking about, because you said it a few days ago, you said about wanting reality, like real wood. And I just want to read you this bit. She's just been in contact with a friend of hers who's a pagan, and quite an impressive pagan.
Yeah.
You know, it's so easy for people who are non-believers of all sorts to just think Christianity is silly. And she wrote, let me just find it, sorry. She said, she looked at me with a look of such total condescension that all I could do was laugh. At the end of my room is a crucifix, and after she'd left I went and stared at the crucifix for a long time, and I breathed it in. I believe in it, she says. Sorry, I can't see this very well. The light's not very good just where we are. I will do my best. I believe in it. It's so ridiculous on many levels, ridiculous for somebody like me, somebody who's a cynic, somebody who has been famously cynical about all sorts of things, to fall for that Christian lunacy. And to see the cross, to see it as the end, not as the end, but a beginning. And to believe in it so much that it's the same way as believing in gravity. The idea that Jesus paid a debt that he didn't have to. We had a debt we couldn't pay. And for her, you know, she did come into Christianity with so many questions, and her books are full of her questions, but they're also full of the most amazing faith. This book is called Operating Instructions, and she says on this cross that she has, which is a really splintered piece of wood and quite broken, and she says, Jesus has no arms but ours to do the work, and those are all the operating instructions that I need. And when you start from there, you can't go too far wrong, really, can you?
I guess not, although people do, and we do. But she never pulls punches, Anne Lamott, does she?
No.
Which I think a lot of people do. And the thing that really drew us to her was precisely that her questions remained open if they weren't answered. And I hope she's listening, because she was hugely helpful to us.
And she is the one who said, God loves you exactly as you are, and far too much to leave you as you are.
That's right.
And I
yeah.
think that you look at the crises in the world, like the migrant crisis or whatever, and you think we've got to love them now, but actually we've got to love them enough to find a solution. Yeah. It's quite a challenge, isn't it?
It is now, and it remains so. And one of the great challenges for me now, having written so much and blathered on about faith for so many years.
And you don't have big hair or a big chair.
Don't have big hair or a big chair, no. Is that if someone said to me, I want you to sit down with me now and tell me what has happened that is so vivid and so real
Real wood.
that you would want me to look at it clearly to find out why it means so much to you. And actually writing that down or making a list of those things is really, really challenging, but I'm going to do that and see what I come up with.
Good.
And I know some, and you as well, and some friends of mine are very keen to do that. So it'll be very interesting to see what we do come up with. But yeah, it's the matter of reality is getting more and more important, because a lot of stuff about Christianity is about getting a book you read.
Absolutely.
Or you go and listen to a talk by somebody.
And I mean, I have often been very positively affected by books.
Yeah, me too.
You know, it's not even yours, my darling.
Even
so
mine,
I'm not, you know, I'm not knocking reading books.
Yeah.
It's just that you need to also keep questioning, don't you?
The questions remain.
Yeah.
Little simple things like, is there a God?
Yeah, and on that note.
and if there is, where do I find him? And the normal answers to those are very predictable and not always very helpful. So we are both keen to search those questions and see what we actually come up with.
Yeah.
And I know there will be people listening to this who will say, "What are you talking about? Haven't you read John 3:16? Aren't you aware the Bible says all those things?" Well, yes, I'm aware of all those things.
Yes, I'd quite like to ask God, though, why he arranged for it to start snowing a blizzard just as you're being pushed up the road in a wheelchair to go and see the doctor. And we all have questions, both small like that and massive, that we need to keep asking.
But the other side of that, of course, is the equally crucial question is, and we haven't mentioned it before, if that is the case, why are we still sitting here doing this? Why are we sounding the shallows? Why do we want people to come up against the reality of Jesus? Because I do.
Yeah.
And I don't find it any easier now, I'm 73, than I did when I was younger. But I'm jolly well not going to step back from that. And I'd love to hear from other people.
Yeah.
You know, what is real?
Absolutely. What is the real wood?
Yeah, what's the real wood from which our faith is made?
Yeah.
So once you've told me that, I'll tell everybody, and all will be well.
And all will be well. Yeah. And hopefully all will be well for us to talk to you next week.
Yeah, and I might be a little bit less under the weather by then, which would be really, really nice. But I do wish you well. I know a lot of people still going through really difficult times, and I hope some kind of reality in what you believe and what I believe we believe will allow the sun to come out and shine on those people who need to hear about it. So there we are.
Yeah.
We're a bit of a sad sight at the moment, but we're all right. We're coming through it. Yeah.
So we'll see you next week, hopefully.
Yeah, stick with us and we'll speak to you next week. Yeah. God bless you. See you next week. Bye-bye.